Hello my friends, and welcome to the channel for another Baldur's Gate 3 build. Today we'll be looking at my take on a dual-wielding fighter-rogue multi-class build that stacks the extra attack from the fighter class with the extra bonus action of the rogue's thief subclass to create a highly mobile two-weapon warrior that can attack up to 6 times in a single combat round, both from melee and from range by using dual hand crossbows. Aside from being able to unleash at least 4 attacks in every single combat round, this build takes advantage of high dexterity and some passive skills to increase AC and become hard to hit. And with your extra bonus action as a rogue, you can do a lot of useful things in combat besides just attacking every round. For your equipment on this build, you're going to be using finesse melee weapons in both hands, which add your dexterity bonus to damage instead of strength. Dual hand crossbows, which benefit from the 2-weapon fighting style, and in the mid to late game, you can pick up some exotic medium armor that adds your entire dexterity bonus to your AC, making you even harder for enemies to actually land a hit on. I set this build up on my companion Astarion because my main character was already a stealth-based rogue, but it works the same setting it up on your main character, and honestly, I think this setup fits Astarion's personality better than a pure rogue build. Before I start talking about the build, I just have one mechanical thing to point out about dual wielding. The game automatically assumes that you want to attack with both weapons when you use the regular attack action, but there's a specific action to attack only with your offhand weapon. If you get good at remembering to just use this single attack when an enemy has really low HP, the game won't waste your second attack on an enemy that's already taken out. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at this build and how I've set it up. So to start this off as a dual wield focused character, I think there's 2 solid ways that you can start the game at level 1. First, you could start as a fighter and do that right to level 5. This way is the safest for combat because you'll start off with 2-weapon fighting, medium armor, you get action surge at level 2, and you will have good HP. The other path would be to start out as a rogue from level 1 to 3 until you get the thief class, which gets you an extra bonus action which can be used to get a second attack with your offhand weapon. Then you'll shift into fighter for 5 levels to get the extra attack and the other benefits. Really, the choice is yours, and it kinda depends on what you need for your party, but personally I think starting as a fighter will make it easier overall, so for this guide I'll be starting as a fighter from level 1 to 5, and then doing the multi-class after I gain the second attack. For the level 1 fighting style, obviously on this build we're gonna go with 2-weapon fighting, which lets you add your ability modifier to damage on your offhand weapon, so you attack without penalties with both hands. For your starting ability scores, you can feel free to leave strength at 8 or 10 because we will be scaling all of our weapons with dexterity. Because of this, you want your dex starting off at 16 or 17 with the +2 bonus for maximum accuracy and damage early on. Constitution is pretty important for any melee character, but with this build you can set yourself up for ranged and melee combat. So you can leave this at 14 if you want some extra points for charisma or intelligence checks. For me, I'm going to put Constitution at 15 using the +1 bonus so I can bump it up to 16 with an ability score increase and gain more HP later on. Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma are kind of optional stats for this character. I would recommend putting Wisdom at least to 12 for a saving throw bonus, but on my build, I put Wisdom to 14 for extra perception and saving throws. Intelligence and Charisma are pretty good if your character is actually going to be the main one talking to NPCs, but since I set this build up on a companion, I left them both at 10 and put my Wisdom higher. At level 2, you just gain Action Surge as a fighter, allowing you to take an extra action in combat once per short rest. What this means early on is that while the rest of your team is stuck with maybe 1 attack per round, you'll be able to attack twice every round, and then you can pop Action Surge to get a 3rd attack once every short rest. At level 3 as a fighter, you get to pick your specialization, and for this build you're going to pick between Battlemaster and Champion. As a Battlemaster, you can get several abilities that can be pretty fun to use and will make your combat a bit more flashy. As Battlemaster, I liked using Disarming Strike on this build for a bit of extra damage and the chance to make an opponent drop their weapon. But more importantly, I really liked Evasive Footwork and Riposte on this dual-wielding fighter build. Evasive Footwork lets you trigger disadvantage on attacks against you for 1 turn, and then Riposte allows you to strike back at any attacker who misses you with a melee attack. Put these together and you'll have basically 1 free extra attack per round, since your high dexterity and the disadvantage on the attacks from evasive footwork will make you pretty hard to hit, and then you'll get a free swing back at them. Now for the other path, Champion, it's much more straightforward. You gain the ability to critical hit on a lower dice roll. And because you're rolling 4 to 6 attacks per round at higher levels, you have more chances to crit each turn, and the Champion path makes that even more likely to happen. Either choice is a pretty good option, but I find the Battlemaster Fighter just more fun to play because you have more buttons to press to do cool stuff. At level 4, you're going to gain your first feat, and right here you have a bit of a choice to make. This build will get 4 feats in total, so you have quite a few choices by the end of the game, but your first feat is really important. At level 4, you can choose between an ability score increase to dexterity and constitution, which will give you more damage, better accuracy, +1 AC, and extra HP. Alternatively, you can take the dual wielder feat, which gives you +1 AC while dual wielding weapons, and allows you to wield larger weapons in both hands. For this build, that means the rapier, which is the highest damage finesse weapon that you can dual wield for melee combat. If you have already found a pair of good magic short swords with effects that you want to keep on, then this isn't really necessary. But if you want to go for the top raw damage out of a dual wield melee build, then dual rapiers are the way to go, and you'll need the dual wielder feat for this setup. At level 5 as a fighter, you gain a second attack with your main hand weapon, meaning that you can now attack twice with your main hand and once with your offhand every round, plus a possible action surge for 2 more attacks, putting you at 5 attacks per round, once per combat. Now once I get the second attack from fighter, I switch my focus and start adding levels of the rogue class to this build. For dual wield characters, there's some really fun stuff that you gain from getting to level 3 as a rogue, and it can really help you to move around in combat without getting punished. At level 1 as a rogue, you don't gain too much really, just some skill proficiencies which can be helpful, and the ability to sneak attack, which is pretty good but not really the focus here. At level 2 as a rogue, you gain the Cunning Action ability, which allows you to dash, hide, and disengage as a bonus action. So you can either double your movement or disable attacks of opportunity against you and still be able to take both of your attacks from being a level 5 fighter. This is pretty useful all by itself, but in one more level it gets even better. At level 3 as a rogue, you can pick a subclass, and for this build, we're going straight into the Thief subclass. As a thief, you gain an extra bonus action every turn, which can be used to dash, hide, disengage, use items, and most importantly for our dual wield fighter, you can now make 2 attacks with your offhand weapon every round. Once you have level 5 fighter and level 3 rogue, you can attack 4 times every round, and then once per combat you can pop action surge and attack 2 more times for a total of 6 attacks in 1 round of combat. You have a lot of things you can do with your bonus action on this build. So once you hit level 8, your combat options start really opening up and you can do a lot more things in 1 turn than most other characters. For levels 9 and 10, you're going to level both fighter and rogue 1 more time each, and both of these levels are going to give you a feat to add to this build. At level 9, I would take the ability improvement if you haven't already, or the dual wielder feat if you already took the ability improvement. At level 10, for your third feat, you have a lot of options that can add something to this build. You can go for Savage Attacker, which will increase your average damage you do with every attack. You can go for Medium Armor Master to add 1 more to your AC bonus, but you can also just get exotic medium armor in Act 2 or 3 that has no dexterity penalty, which is a better option. You can also just spec into another ability improvement and bump your dex up to 20 for maximum benefits on a lot of rolls, so you have a lot of options here. For my choice, I went with Savage Attacker just so I could roll a bit higher on average with my dual wield attacks. Now when it comes to your last 2 levels, you have another choice to make here. My first thought is that you could put 2 more levels into Rogue, which gets you Uncanny Dodge to help you avoid damage from explosions and spell effects. And you can get Expertise in 2 skills, which can be pretty helpful for late game skill checks, because some of these rolls require 30s. My second thought, and the path that I'm taking myself for this build, is to just put 2 more levels into Fighter and end the game at 8 levels of Fighter and 4 levels of Rogue. This will get you a 4th feat for the build, and 1 extra Battlemaster technique and an extra superiority die to use it with. I already had a stealthy rogue on my team, so I didn't need those extra rogue levels. But really I can see both of these paths working quite well overall. You basically choose between a more combat-focused character or one that gets a huge boost in the late game to dodging and skill checks. That basically covers it for this build though. I've always been a huge stan for dual-wield builds in D&D, and I'm sure I'm not alone in enjoying the power fantasy of swinging two swords around or firing off volleys from dual-wielded crossbows. My favorite part about this build is just the sheer variety of things you can do in a single turn. You can dash to double your movement, swoop in and finish off an enemy with 3 attacks, pop action surge, and then fire off 2 crossbow shots. You're rarely stuck with nothing to do, and you can always pop a free bonus action to use a healing potion or an elixir if things get really sketchy. Having 4 weapons equipped also means that you can stack up some pretty cool effects from magical weapons later on in the game, which is a pretty underrated benefit of dual wield builds. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you try this build out, I wish you the best of luck. Let me know how it goes for you down in the comments. Thanks for checking out the video. I've got links to my Twitch stream and Discord server down below for anyone interested. And until next time, stay safe out there, everyone.